Hi there, my name is Becky and I am the owner and sole employee of In Stitches by Becky Scott in Covington, Kentucky. I have decided that I wanted to make a series of videos telling you about how I got started with my alterations business. I am here at my sewing machine and I am picking out a zipper today, so I'm going to just talk to you while I work, and we're going to start making some videos about the process of getting an alterations or bridal alterations business started, although a lot of the information I think would work great for almost any business. One of the things that I found the most challenging when I first started was that there are lots of resources, but none of them really seemed correct for what I needed to do. I was coming into an alterations business. I primarily do bridal and formal wear, although I do other things right now too, clothing in general. My goal is to focus solely on bridal and formal wear, but I'm also coming from a costuming background, from an artist background, and sometimes that's the struggle, isn't it? I'm not coming from a business background. My goal is not to make $1 million. My goal is not to have 15 employees under me. I want that personal relationship with clients. I want to be comfortable and make a living enough that I have control over my own schedule. All of those things are factors in why I decided to go this route, and why also why a lot of the resources that are available just didn't work for me. So a little bit about me really quickly. I've had my LLC by name for a couple of years now, but as far as really pursuing the business part of it, it's been about a year. I started out in my home and was there for a couple of months, and then now have rented studio space in an artist building. And we will talk later about different options for that. I had been working in theater, and then when I left theater, I had done a lot of bouncing around different kinds of retail. I worked in other alteration shops. My degree is in costume design, and my background is in theater. And I had a pretty limited skill set. I mean, it is what it is. I sew, and I've always sewn, and that has been what I've always done. I didn't have a lot of retail experience. I didn't have, I'd been very fortunate in my theater career in that I was always able to find theater work. I didn't have to, do side jobs of, waitressing or, whatever. But much like sewing in alteration shops, sewing in theater is sometimes not, the costume shop is sometimes not the most respected area in a theater, and is often the lowest paid area in the space. The employees are usually lower paid. I have a whole lecture I could give about women's work and disrespect of the skills and labor historically that women have had. But that is for another day. What I did find also is that, most alteration shops weren't paying any better than what theater was. They're all paying badly. And I am thankful that I did retail alterations, that I did alterations for other shops. There are some things that are very specific to bridal alterations that are useful. That was useful skill to learn. Having said that, it is what it is. I am in a couple different groups online, on social media, that also are for bridal alterations or professional alterations people. And they also are a wealth of information in terms of, just knowledge. I've gotten so much information from those groups to help shortcut and streamline the processes, and also as new dress styles come out and new techniques, being able to keep up to date. Having said that, I think that at some point you always have this situation happen where you realize that you're getting paid $17 an hour, and they're charging $80 for bridesmaid hem, and you knocked it out in 45 minutes, or less than an hour, and somewhere along the line the math doesn't math. I understand overhead. I will tell you outright, none of those places had benefits. It's not like, they were also paying their part of health insurance or whatever with that. My retirement plan, none of them had that. I mean, I understand that there is overhead and that there are responsibilities that an employer has. But it is a hard sell to spend your entire day watching a business make hundreds and hundreds of dollars off of your work. I've been at bridal shops that I was putting out the equivalent of what they were charging, $700-800 a day. I could knock out in the alterations. That much work in a full day. At $17 an hour, I was making, we'll say, considerably less than the $800 a day that they were making off of me. Overhead is great. Overhead is necessary, but like I said, there's something with that math that I, at some point, started thinking about just a little too much while I was, sitting there making money for somebody else, and realized that I could probably make the same money weekly, working half the hours, if I was working for myself and had consistent work. I think that people who sew, even if you don't do it as your full-time job, I think we always end up with side work. And so I knew that had existed the entire time. We'd always been doing that. Working in theater, everybody always had side work that they were doing, sewing things. And students who were always doing side work. So the work is out there, and it is. I was also working at shops that they were turning away work because they were fully booked. So I knew that there was work to be had. It was just a matter of getting started. And it may be when you first start that you're going to have to still, work a different job, or work part-time at least someplace for a while. I was doing that. At one point, I jumped the gun and did not stick the landing, as it were. Went ahead and quit, thinking that I was going to have enough work to cover a missing paycheck. And in fact, as soon as I did that, of course, the work slowed down. And I ended up going back and working part-time retail to make up for the loss in paycheck, until seasonally things picked up again, and then I left there. I mean, you can do that, but generally speaking, I am not working 40 hours a week here. I am not in this place 40 hours a week, and I am bringing home a pretty decent amount of money. Is it $200,000? No, but it is enough, and it is often the same amount of money that I would have made working 40 hours for somebody else. So that's fair. And we'll talk more about bookkeeping and all of that stuff, and talk more about just how I made those steps. when I went searching for resources to get me started and get going and show me the steps to get going on my own, I found that there wasn't anything that was really applicable to what I was dealing with, which is why I thought making videos and explaining my process would be helpful to somebody, maybe. There were lots of places that do small business advisement. A lot of those places are businesses whose business is to train people to do small businesses. I mean, it's a full circle. It's like a weird matrix situation. Their business is helping people with businesses. So they may offer initial consultations. They might give you really good information then. And I have no problem with those places. I did talk to a lot of different people that help small business get started. A lot of them will do initial consultations for free, and they were great. I did get information from them. I got clients from them, but they were not really appropriate. Their whole program was not really an appropriate thing for what I needed. So that wasn't going to work. Going to, it's hard coming from an artist background. Most of the grant money, aside from the fact that most grant money is for nonprofits, if you can find grant money for profits or grant money from situations like that, most of them are focused very much on expansion of the business, in terms of the business growing, in terms of business scaling up. It's very product oriented, and it was not appropriate for what I needed. I mean, first of all, it's a service more than a product. In my case, could I produce items to sell? Yeah, but that's not the focus here. And so I also, I don't want to hire employees. That's like, how do you grow this sort of business? The next steps would involve, growing employees, or the next steps would be, I am considering very strongly, starting to teach classes, which in my head is an expansion of the business, and the business growing. But I don't know that it would be viewed that way by the people doing, that kind of funding. It's not quite, the same thing. So without a product or, a plan of expanding at a level where you're going to be a bajillionaire, what is that? I also, yes, do I want to eventually stop altering regular people clothes? Yes. But I still like doing creative projects. I still like dealing with brides who are on a budget. I don't want to become so exclusive and bump my prices so much that I am out of touch with the most people. And part of that is just coming from the artist background. Something that I really struggled with in the other alterations places that I worked at is that they were very much selling the bridal experience, which is cool. That's fine. They were very chrome and sleek, and they very much charged for that. Brides are paying a lot for that experience of feeling pampered, of of feeling, of going in and having people gush over them for an hour. And trust me, if you're a bride and that's what's happened, you're paying for that. That's not free. You're paying for people to do that. And there are brides that have the money and have the, that dream of the wedding that are more than happy. And it doesn't faze them to pay higher prices for somebody to gush over them for an hour. That's cool. Like, more power to you. If that's what you want to do, if that's how, if that's how you're going into your wedding, that's great. There are people that will do that for the right price. I'm coming from an artist background, and I had issues prior to that, where I wasn't being dropped into doing bridal fittings. I was, kept in a back room sewing, because I didn't fit the aesthetic of the place that I was working. I think that if I would have been 19 or 20 or 25 years old and somebody had implied to me that, my aesthetic was not what they wanted, that I might take it personally and, sure. I was not. I am comfortable with the vibe that I give off. I am comfortable with the look that I have. And if you, as a alteration shop, don't understand that my vibe does not in any way imply that I don't know what I'm doing, or if you as a bride are going into an alteration shop and you believe that if your aesthetic doesn't match, the alterations person, that means that they're incapable. I mean, it's a very confusing situation. But point being is that I was not being sent into alterations fittings because of my appearance. It is what it is. I don't have to deal with that now. And the brides that I get don't care. And I get a lot of the quirky brides and the non-traditional brides, and I get normal brides too, but they are brides that are understanding of, what they're walking into, and they don't care. And those are the brides I want. Those are the brides I want. I don't need brides who insist that they have that experience, that aesthetic, that, I don't know, classiness. I don't know even what you would call it. I think that you know what I mean. If they insist on that, and if that is somehow how they measure the quality of the work that they're getting, then that's fine. They can go there. And then they have to realize that the people doing the work for them are getting paid very badly. And also, those people have the same training. Everybody has the same training. I mean, I joke about this, but it's, there is a large retailer of bridal wear that typically and at various points has had in-house alterations at some level. We've all worked there. So if you are going to an expensive bridal alteration shop saying to yourself, oh, these people know what they're doing better than that place does, I hate to tell you, but I mean, most of us have worked at that place. Most of us have been there, and it's I think it's funny. We've all worked there, even if it was a long time ago, or when we were young, or when we were barely knew what we were doing. We've all worked there. So to be exclusive about thinking that somebody has a lot more experience because they're not at that place, it's not really accurate. But you pay what if you wanna pay 25 or 30% over because somebody has chrome fixtures in their alteration studio and gushes at you for an hour, then that's your business. Those are not my people, and I'm okay with that. There are plenty of other people that can do that. If you want something different or quirky, or if you're working with a budget, or if you have a tight turnover and need somebody who can do quality work in a hurry, that's where I come in, and I'm comfortable with that. Excuse me. There is a sensor on the light. if I sit still too long, the light shut off on me, which is actually a good thing, because if I'm doing a lot of hand sewing, I probably do need to stand up and move around every now and then, so that's cool. Anyway, I've ranted enough about that. Point being is that I plan to take you step by step from my beginning, which may not be the same as yours, and show you how I got to this point. I'm not done yet. It's not perfect. I'm still growing, but hopefully that you can see a different way. If the other ways that you've been looking at have been discouraging to you, or you're just not sure how to start it out, or if you're an artist, or if you are not fitting the aesthetic of what you see in your peer group, how do you deal with that? And I'm gonna probably most of the days be sewing. I know my camera is really wiggly because it's mounted onto my industrial machine table. And that's just, maybe you just listen and don't look. But I'm gonna sew and chat, as one does. When one is sewing, we sew and talk at the same time. And just tell you the steps that I took and how I've done things so far to get to this point. So I look forward to hearing from people. I look forward to questions if you have them. And I'm going to stop this video for now, and we'll work on another one very shortly. Bye.